Alrighty guys, it is Qaaman here today, and I'm bringing you another Dragon Ball Super review for episode 35 of Dragon Ball Super, which is called Turn Anger into Power, Vegeta's All-Out Battle. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video, and if you haven't seen the episode yet, and if you don't really care about spoilers, continue watching. If you obviously do, you would have tuned off already. Wow! Where do I even begin? I mean, this was one of the more interesting episodes of Dragon Ball Super, and the reason why I say this is because so many unique things happened in this episode. A lot of things that took place were to satisfy fanboys, a lot of creative things, and this was one of the more cerebral elements of Dragon Ball, and we haven't seen something like this in a while. So, the episode obviously starts off with Vegeta facing against Frost, and I will be honest with you, I did not expect, and Super Jaiyan made a good prediction on this, but I did not expect Vegeta to one-shot Frost like that. I mean, that completely caught me off guard. I had no idea that the fight was going to be that quick. I thought maybe if Vegeta beat Frost, it would be near the end of the episode. He would, Frost would put up somewhat of a fight and then Magetta would come in. That is not the case. Vegeta just one-shots him, and then there was a huge hiatus of the episode until Magetta even came into the next fight. And I did not expect that at all. What made it interesting about that whole Vegeta versus Frost thing, though, is that Goku and Piccolo had already lost and they had already weakened him to some degree. So obviously Vegeta didn't fight Frost at 100%, but that fight kind of made me feel as if it's like you're really just gonna one-shot a guy that spent like the last 2 episodes terrorizing these fighters. I felt that was a little, I guess you could say it wasn't very fair to the fans that were really expecting more of a pounding. I wanted Vegeta to just pound him, partially for revenge, but it didn't happen and Frost is gone. Now, the interesting thing about that afterwards is that after Frost was defeated, you saw Frost actually, analyzing the treasure and stuff, and he's trying to escape, and then Hit. Now, this was the highlight of the episode for me. This is definitely the most memorable moment of the episode, when Hit came in and he literally just stood there and like the entire ground literally just started blasting Frost. I'm like, holy shit, that caught me off guard too. And that added a lot of, shock factor to this episode, because I really didn't expect, because we saw the previews, Hit was, building up that, that thing off of the ground, but we didn't expect it to affect Frost in that manner. So that's obviously, completely confirming what Danny had reported earlier, that Hit is almost guaranteed to be the strongest fighter now. If he has a power like that, that's just, incredible. And obviously, it's also showing that Hit might have some sign of respect for, for characters in the universe, considering that Frost is trying to do something sneaky and he's getting, revenge on him for, trying to make a movement like that, because he wouldn't have made a movement like that if he didn't feel that way. That was one interesting thing. The other thing I also noticed is I thought the funny moment of this episode would have to be when Beerus and Champa are basically angry with each other because of the fact that, they expanded the boundaries of the tournament, which makes it significantly harder for somebody to get knocked out now, considering Vegeta just literally punched Frost and knocked him out completely, which really affected the whole dynamics of the fight, similar to how we saw in the Cell Games tournament, how Cell destroyed the ring. It's kind of making it more of an open playing field, which, obviously one side would be supporting it and the other would be, obviously against it. So I thought that was kind of a nice, fun way to kind of point back to some of the old Dragon Ball stuff. But really, ultimately, guys, although those were nice elements of this episode, the true ultimate discussion would have to be Magetta. And I must say, I was so entertained watching the second half of this episode. The Vegeta Frost thing was a joke, but when Magetta came out, we don't know much about Magetta. We know that he's a metallic-looking organism. He's not a robot, for those of you who think he is. He's actually not. He's a living organism. And the funny thing about Magetta is that when the fight started out and Vegeta was just dodging all of his hits, I was saying to myself, what is Vegeta doing? Like, why isn't Vegeta taking the offensive? Because we know that Goku and Vegeta have been holding back in this entire tournament, and that's one thing that's been taking this Universal 6 tournament away from me, because it's like, just go all out already, stop holding back, especially if you're Vegeta, because Vegeta doesn't waste as much time as Goku does. So Vegeta's, dodging all these hits, and then once you start to see that Magetta is completely changing his tactics, and he's actually shooting all of this fire all throughout the ring, and you're starting to see that the fire is affecting Vegeta. Vegeta's breathing heavily, even though he turned Super Saiyan. And when we saw that, that fire versus energy blast clash, that was amazing to see, because this is now starting to enter the more cerebral elements of Dragon Ball. This is the Dragon Ball I love. It's no longer all about, I'm just way stronger than you, I'm just way faster than you. Now in the case of Vegeta and Frost, Vegeta just one-shotted him, but this is getting back to those Dragon Ball fights where Goku's fighting Tien, kind of similar to what we've seen in Yu Yu Hakusho, where Yusuke's fighting Toguro, where it's not just the power, it's the tactics you're using, it's the abilities that your opponents have, and it's the way you utilize your abilities. And I think that that's what's making this fight so intriguing. So when we saw in the preview how we saw Vegeta, having what it seemed to be like a final flash against, Magetta's, heat attack, that was really making me believe that this can probably be a good sign for Dragon Ball, because they're moving away from just power and speed, and now they're moving into a new category. And Magetta seems to be an extremely entertaining, fighter with his ability to just, absorb all of that molten lava, and you could see that it's so hot that it's even affecting the characters who are watching the fight. So you gotta say to yourself, Vegeta must have a lot of endurance, and this is the perfect battle for Vegeta. Vegeta's the type of character that has a lot of endurance. He can go up against anybody and he can last a long time. So this was great writing. This episode really hit me when the whole Magetta aspect started off. I was moderately interested in the first half with Frost, because they completely wasted that fight. But Magetta seems like he's a very interesting character to come, and I have not been so excited to see another episode of Dragon Ball Super in a while. So with all that said, guys, I'm gonna have to give this episode 4 stars out of 5. I would have given it 5 stars if the first half was better. I wish they added more closure to Frost, at least have Vegeta pounding him similar to what he was doing with Frieza in the Resurrection of F arc, but they didn't, and that was kind of a bummer for me, because I was expecting more with Frost. I didn't think he would just be knocked out and then, Hit basically just knocks him out again. That took away from the episode a little too much, and if it wasn't for that and they, at least paced it out a little bit more, took out more of the dialogue and made it more focused on what we just recently saw in the previous episode where Piccolo lost and then Goku lost the same exact way, I would have liked to have seen more of that. I would have liked to have seen Frost at least trying to, stab Vegeta with the needle again. I would have liked to have seen more interaction of Frost, more dialogue at least, more discussions between them to really emphasize on that hatred that Vegeta has for, Frieza's race or Frieza's, Universe 6 counterpart. And I felt that would have made the episode a lot richer instead of just knocking him out. So with that said, guys, that's been my episode review for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed. So most importantly, over everything else, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys, and please check out Geekdom's review in my description, because he's going to be giving his own review, talking more about some other elements. So I hope you guys watch. Thank you for your time.